Velina me ke aloha. Welcome to the Lāhui Rising series. This educational series is designed to create a safe, respectful, and enriching learning space for all audiences to hear and honor various perspectives on matters of Hawaiian interest. The content of the presentation shown in the Lāhui Rising series may not necessarily reflect the views of Kamehameha schools. However, we hope this series will encourage openness and respect for differing views on Hawaiian issues and stimulate discussion and action towards positive change for our Lāhui Hawaii.
Mahalo e ke ala. E kipa mai kākoa pau I ululani hale ma ka'iwa kilo moku nei. Welcome all of us to this beautiful facility. How many of you are here for the first time at Ka'iwa Kilo Moku? Mai kai, e kipa mai means to come visit, come relax, come and enjoy. E komo mai, enter, come inside and be with us. This facility has quite a mo'oku auhau, I must say. And to help us be welcomed properly, I'd like to invite at this time the manager of Ka'iwa Kilo Moku. Please help me welcome to the microphone, Jamie Midilani Fong.
Aloha mai kākou. O Jamie Fong ko'o inoa no Moloka'i mai au. Hana wau ma ho'okahua o wau ka manakia o Ka'iwa Kilo Moku. Welcome to the Ka'iwa Kilo Moku Hawaiian Cultural Center. This center was the vision of respected Hawaiian leader and former Kamehameha Schools trustee, Myron Pinky Thompson. He believed that culture was a foundation for Hawaiian success, and we continue to be inspired by the strong sense of values and life of service that he provided to our Lāhui. For those who are visiting the center for the first time, the restrooms are located on either side of Ululani Hale. And after the program this evening, we invite all of you to join us for refreshments in celebration of Mahina Olelo Hawaii, Hawaiian Language Month. Please join us next week, Tuesday at 7 p.m. right here for Letters from the Ali'i, featuring historical writings by Hawaiian royalty that reveal insights about 19th century life in the Hawaiian Kingdom. And also stay tuned for more events coming up in April and May. On behalf of Kamehameha Schools and Ka'iwa Kilo Moku, aloha no.
Mahalo, Jamie. Before we get to introducing our panelists and hearing a little bit about them, let's talk a little bit more about our heritage here at Kamehameha, and especially at Ka'iwa Kilo Moku. We hear the name Ululani Hale, or the House of Ululani. And we think about our ali'i nui of Kamehameha, and we go back to his point in time when he is bringing the islands together, starting with his island of Hawaii. And so Ululani was a chiefess of Hilo. Her kane, her husband, Keaweaheulu, was the right-hand man of Kamehameha. And so Keaweaheulu and Ululani are there in Hilo. Kamehameha is making his way into Hilo Bay with his forces to continue his campaign to conquer the island of Hawaii. The chiefess Ululani chants out a mele to him saying that you indeed are Kalani Nui Mehameha, you are the great Kamehameha. And we call the spirit of that iwa, that frigate bird who will hook all the islands together. Your time has not quite arrived, but I'm about to ignite that. Okaho'a keia. So Ka'iwa Kilo Moku is a term really conjured up in true hakumele style by the chiefess Ululani. And so Kamehameha is also known as Ka'iwa Kilo Moku. So the center is Ka'iwa Kilo Moku. This particular hale, which is the largest hale, big enough for song contest rehearsal, or panels on Hawaiian governance. We have over here to my left at the end of the building here, Kalai Pohaku. Kalai Pohaku is where our Hawaiian arts are taught, and Kalai Pohaku is named for that border of the Kapalama Ahupua'a, just by a level that coming down. The room to this end of Ululani Hale is Napu'u Mai'a, and Napu'u Mai'a is the very tip top in the ko'olaus of the Kapala Ma'ahupua as well. We look behind you there, we're facing directly south when you look directly behind yourselves to Kukulu o Kahiki, and that referring to the pillars of Kahiki, the pathway to the homeland of our people, which is to the south. And so with all those things in mind, we're reminded of who we come from and where we come from, and to look at our panel of three distinguished Kamehameha graduates. So we're very, very pleased and honored to have a discussion about a subject matter that many of us know very little about, some of us know a lot about, and a bunch of us are kind of right in between, know nothing and know plenty. So it's okay to be in that group of people. The way the stage is balanced, I'm over here on the mature end of the presentation, and we have, but we're all good looking, and the younger side is over there. But I'd like to begin. You all have printed programs, and we know these people because they're our ohana, and we love them, we respect them. And I'm going to begin and just take a few minutes and introduce yourselves. But I will first introduce Dr. Lilikalā Kame eleihiwa, because she's my kumu, and if I don't introduce her, I'll get good scoldings after. Lilikalā Kame eleihiwa is a long-time advocate for Kapo'e Hawaii, Kākou Apau, a graduate of Kamehameha schools, and well learned in academics and traditions about matters from throughout the world. She has led before and leads again the Kamakaku o Kalani Center for Hawaiian Studies at the University of Hawaii in Manoa. That center is named for a former principal of the Kamehameha School for Girls, Gladys Kamakaku o Kalani Ainoa Brandt. And so I think you can maybe begin with a little bit of that, but we also want, as we talk about each of the panelists, not only what you're doing now and how you got to become in those positions, but maybe some of your Kamehameha memories and maybe a little bit about some of the changes here. Here we are in a Hawaiian Cultural Center that, how many of you never have this when you were here at Kamehameha? Me too. And so we're very lucky to be in a different time, and Lilikalā Kame eleihiwa has graced us at Ka'iwa Kilo Moku before. Aloha ahia hikaua e Lilikalā. Your microphone is ready, so pehea oi. Well, we can introduce everybody. You see, that is the elder telling us how to do this properly. And so Kalei Aina Lee is, I know him best as a member. He is a member of the Pearl Harbor Hawaiian Civic Club. I'm a member of the Hawaiian Civic Club of Honolulu. And Kalei Aina is many, many years younger than me, but he's risen to the heights that I have not yet achieved in the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs. So he has, at the recent convention of the annual convention of the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs, he has really elevated to the position of first vice president. Is that correct? No. Second vice president. Well, good luck. You'll get to the first vice president at some point. I know Kalei Aina also because I know his ohana very well in working with Aloha festivals, in working with numerous cultural parts of the community. So please welcome Kalei Aina Lee. He'll be talking more about his role in tonight's forum a little bit later. Kalei Aina.
And Manu forgets because it was so long ago, but Manu is also my hula brother.
Yes, we are. We uehe ami and we slide. That's right. Michelle Kauhane is also a Kamehameha Schools graduate, and she's very spirited. Her name in Hawaiian means the spirit, Kauhane. And she's a lovely leader and a thinker. And as we're putting together this panel, she really was the one back and forth with our Ho'okahua staff in making sure that we had the materials that we needed and making suggestions for what things we could present in a relatively short panel. But as a Kamehameha graduate, she also really embodies that sense of community that Pauahi had. And that's something that you really can't teach, you have to example. And so she's a beautiful elele, representative of our Lāhui, and she is also, along with the other two panelists, a graduate of Kamehameha Schools, Michelle Kauhane. So anything else, Lilikalā, that I should say before you start? Or if I'm not ready, you tell me. Dr. Lilikalā Kame eleihiwa.
Mahalo nui manu. Aloha mai kako. Aloha e ka Lāhui Hawaiian mai ka ia peina ka la i hae ka nā puʻoana ka la i eleihiwa. Aloha. I'm so very pleased to be here this evening, and I was so grateful that I received this invitation. Although actually I'm not doing politics anymore, I'm just doing ancestral knowledge. This is probably my last time talking about politics. But before we get into the politics part of it, I want to tell you a little bit about me, and Manu has asked me to do that. I want to say that I feel like the 100 generations of our ancestors are here in this room tonight, and I can see them in all of your faces. And I know that they will direct us to speak about things that are important for the next 100 generations of Hawaiians in this land, to make sure that we have land. I'm the first person in my family to graduate from high school since the overthrow of the Queen. I'm the first person in my family to graduate from Kamehameha. I'm the first person to get a PhD in my family. I'm the first person to be a professor in my family. And what I see when I look at our people, at all my wonderful students at Manoa, at Kamakakuokalani, when I look at the youth of Kamehameha, I see the promise of the future. I also see great need that we have in our land. You should know that my family was a very much working class family. By the time I was 13, we had moved 11 times looking for cheaper rent. So I know what it is not to have a place to call your own. And what I want to see in our discussions tonight is how do we get land for our people? How do we get land for our children? How do we get land for our grandchildren? How do we invite the 48% who had to move away because they can't afford $1 million to buy land here at home? How do we take care of them? And how do we make sure the other 48% doesn't move away? How do we do that? So after my best times at Kamehameha, I think, were, of course, at Hawaiian language class, Olelo Hawaii. And my worst times probably were when I was called to Auntie Gladys's, to Mrs. Brandt's office, because I was insubordinate. And I was continually insubordinate, and that's just my nature. I've been insubordinate, I'm sure, for the last 100 generations, you know. So she used to scold me for many things, and I used to weep copiously. But when I left Kamehameha and I went to university, and then I became a professor eventually, I found out that she was the chair of the Board of Regents. She is the best chair of the Board of Regents that we have had in the history of the University of Hawaii. And it's because of her that we have a space at the university for Hawaiians to come and learn ancestral knowledge. So here we say that for Auntie Gladys. I don't want to speak too long about me, but I want to say what she taught us was kuleana. We have a kuleana to serve our people. If we're lucky enough to come to Kamehameha, we have a kuleana. We have to make sure that all of those children who don't have enough food, who don't have a house to live in, who don't have education that they deserve, that they have it. And so that has been my passion all my life. I really, really love my job. People say to me, when are you going to retire? Never. I am never retiring. I love teaching, but I'm not going to do politics much more. So this is probably my last political speech. I really love talking about our ancestors. I love that we are here in Kapalama, the land where Haumea was born, on the cliffs of Nu'umealani, where this whole area is dedicated to the Akua Wahine that inspire us, the mother of Pele, the mother of Hina, the mother of Kapola ki Na'ua Pela Aku Matni. So we have many great gifts. We have ancestral wisdom. We have a way of taking care of the land that will feed all of us. And we'll talk about that a little bit, but I'd really like to have everybody else introduce themselves, and we'll get to the papahana of tonight. And if you have any burning questions for this evening, you can ask them after they're through speaking. Mahalo.
Mahalo Lilikalā. Āina. Just a little bit about yourself, about what kind of work you're doing now, and maybe about your growing up years. And I'm particularly hoi or interested in and so respectful of your grandmother on Molokai. So o'oe mai.
Aloha mai kako. Before I start, there's something else that Auntie Lilikalā and I have in common about being insubordinate. I spent many of my time up here on campus. So in elementary, it was in Mrs. Wells' office. In intermediate, it was in Mrs. Lord's office. In high school, it was Mr. Kramer's office. And then, not so much Mrs. Souza. Mrs. Souza liked me, but I spent a lot of time in Mr. Ramos' office. They would have called me insubordinate. I would have said that I was just standing up for what I believed in. Manu asked me to speak a little bit about my childhood, because although I've been to Kauhane Moku a bunch, I've never been to that center over there. So when one of them were explaining the center and what it's about and how it came to be, he talked about the room on the side, so I went in to go look and see all the artifacts that were in there. And the first thing that caught my eye, if any of you have been in there, there's a photograph from the 70s of Hokulea traveling along the north side of Molokai. And the very first thing I saw was a hat, a papale. So I went and grabbed my mother, who's here, and she came in, and I go, what do you see in this picture? And the first words out of her mouth, oh my God, it's your grandmother. So my grandmother, for those of you that don't know, is Mary Lee from Molokai. She was one of the founders of Protect Koho'olawe. She helped the people of Molokai to regain access to all the coastal lands from Molokai Ranch. She also helped provision the original hukulea, and which is why I'm assuming she was on that canoe in that photograph. She gave us that, and she also raised us to fight for sovereignty and our own self-determination as Hawaiian people. My father, Benson Lee Sr., was a former president of the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs. So I was born and raised in the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs. Some say I was raised to be this. I say I had no choice. As a little kid, we didn't have a choice I had to go to all these meetings. And to my mother's surprise, I actually paid attention. But it was my grandmother that instilled all of that in me, as well as all of my cousins. I am only the second generation of Lees in Hawaii, which I'm sure is surprising to a lot of you, that last name Lee. That's why when people say, oh, you really do so-and-so Lee, I can definitely say yes or no, because I'm only the second generation of Lees in Hawaii. My grandfather, my paternal grandfather, was born in Hawaii. His parents are from Korea. So I know every Lee in the state that I'm related to, I guess in the country, because they're not all living here anymore. But so she really instilled that in us, in standing up for what we believed in, and not being afraid to stand up for what we believed in, no matter how popular or unpopular that was. And that's a really driving force in why I do what I do. I know one of them asked about the work that I do, and work is a relative term, because all the things that I do, which affords me to sit up here this evening to talk to you folks, none of it I get paid for. I don't know how to do something about that. But as Manu said, I'm the new second vice president for the Association of Hawaiian Civic Clubs. I am also the president of the Alumni Association for the Oahu region. So who all in here is alumni? Raise your hand. So I expect to see every single one of you at our next general membership meeting. Actually, you're gonna wanna come. It's gonna be in June. It's gonna be the week after Alumni Week, and we plan on having every alumni who sailed on Hokulea for the Worldwide Voyage. So you guys are gonna wanna come to that. But that's a little bit about me, and I guess why I'm here. Before I pass this on to Michelle, because it talks in here about the fact that the three of us participated at the AHA. It wasn't just the three of us. There were 154 people that were invited, and on a daily basis, between 95 and 135 people showed up every day to do this very, very hard work. And I want to make sure that they all get recognized, because we're not the only three here. So if you participated at the AHA and you showed up 1 year ago, every single day for 20 days at Manawili, please stand.
Yep.
Awesome.
Mahalo nui. Before you start, Michelle, I'd like to say regarding the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, they produce or put on each year the Native Hawaiian Convention. And what I remember, and I've attended several of them, is, and I wonder, what is Lilikalā Kame doing here? And we remember our kumu ala, Lilikalā Kame, as a fantastic embodiment of our Lāhui. And she, I think she became a board member at some point too. But what she did with the participants at the Native Hawaiian Convention, as well as for the staff of the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, CNHA, is she taught them oli. You know, she taught them many of the many that we had learned from the Kanaka Ole Ohana. So we learned, of course, e ho mai, ka ike mai luna mai e, na au makua, e iho ana o luna, and what have you. And I bring this up because I have a really good friend, Brett Nakoa, who used to work there, and I'd never heard him chant before. And one time I was chanting that, and he chanted with me. And I said, "How you learned that?" And he said, "CNHA from Kumu Ala." Representing the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, Michelle Kauhane. Aloha.
Thank you. Thank you. And so first I will say yes, mahalo to Auntie Ala, because in the beginning years of CNHA, when we started 16 years ago, our original founder, although grew up in Kauai, she was returning from Alaska, and I think everyone in Hawaii said, "Hey, who you?" And so Auntie Ala was the one who really embraced the council, acted as our kumu, and really helped us to survive the who you phase as everyone started to get to know who we are. So yes, we are 16 years old. Today I serve as the president and CEO at the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement. I'm a 1986 grad from Kamehameha. My family grew up on the windward side of Oahu in Kaneohe. And I grew up in a family that raised me. I wasn't in the office like these two. That before I went to Kamehameha, I went to Sacred Hearts Academy. That my papa, David Kauhane, and his wife, Bernice Aloia Wong, raised their children very non-Hawaiian. For whatever reason, they spoke Hawaiian when they didn't want to know when they didn't want us to know what they were talking about. And so I would say very much that we were products of a phase of our history where they were a little bit afraid that they were protecting their children, and so we grew up very much in the Catholic Church. And I remember specifically getting into Kamehameha, having to tell my papa, David Kauhane, Dad says, "Go tell Papa that you got into Kamehameha." And his first reaction was, "So? That means Sacred Hearts is doing a good job." And so I grew up a little confused as a Hawaiian, honestly. Came here, loved it. Some of the best days of my life. I think that there's not one particular day that what we have here at Kapalama is lifelong friendships, and I don't have to explain that. I think every single person knows what I'm talking about, that we all become connected because of this place and because what our princess has offered. But I graduated from Kamehameha, went to Gonzaga University, came home in 1990. In 1993, I remember specifically standing in front of Iolani Palace, very confused, coming home to a Hawaii that I didn't realize why were our people so angry? Why are our people so upset? And I spent a couple days there watching and observing from the sidelines the reenactment of the overthrow of our kingdom. And then read every single book, our history written by our queen, but always watching from the sidelines. In 2006, I was in Washington, D.C. with the then chairman, Micah Kane, and his deputy, Kaulana Park, Attorney General Mark Bennett, and was in Washington, D.C. for the very first time at 38 years old, thinking, okay, I'm gonna do this because this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. I might never go to Washington, D.C. again. I was wrong. But I sat there as a Hawaiian in the gallery of the Senate, Office of Hawaiian Affairs trustees, Micah Kane, Kaulana Park, many other Hawaiians, and watched a handful, kalamai, of white Republican men decide the fate of the Akaka bill with a vote of 59 instead of 60, and we didn't get cloture, which means it couldn't go to the floor for a fair up and down vote. And yet Senator Akaka believed strongly at that time that we're gonna get to at least get this bill voted on, and it didn't. And I sat there at 38 years old in tears, thinking, that the same thing happened again that I watched the reenactment of at Iolani Palace in 1993, that this is what happens when we sit on the sidelines. That when we're not engaged and we care about it, but we don't get involved, this is what happens. And so from then till today, I'm gonna be 50. I'm proudly saying that to you. I promised as I left Washington, D.C., that I would never be unengaged again. Never, ever be unengaged again. Because being a part of all of that goes on in Washington, D.C., or at our state legislature, or at your community meetings, at the KS alumni, it all matters. And that we have to make it matter. And so that's really what drove me to do the work that I was doing. And it wasn't really until I started to work at Hawaiian Community Assets, where we were helping families, and Denise Ka'a'a worked with me there too, helping families who've been sitting on the wait list for decades to try and get their homestead award, to help them figure out what does financing mean and why do you have to have credit to take this award, that really led to me being at the council today. So that's just a little bit of background on how I got where I am today. And then as you look back, I learned so much history because I started to care about where your ohana was. I learned that my papa's brother was the first Speaker of the House when Hawaii was just a territory. That he served at the Royal Order of Kamehameha as its first ali'i moku, Charles Kauhane. And so I proudly say that to you because I had to wait till I was 38 years old before I decided to get engaged, yet there was a history of Kauhane who were very engaged. So thank you, Manu.
Mahalo.
Yeah.
Mahalo Anui. You know, the word aha is a general term for gathering or convention. And this particular aha that was held in 2016, just last year, was something that I really don't know anything about. So much so, I really wasn't even a supporter of even wanting to learn about it. And I'll tell you why. And this is why when I hear Lilikalā talking about kind of focusing more on the pono o ka Lāhui, is that for many years I worked for another institution, 15 years, that was completely involved in all kinds of political aspirations and differences of opinion and common goals and what have you. And it just kind of, 15 years, you kind of burn out. And what happens, I think, sometimes in our Lāhui or in our family or in our jobs or whatever we do, if you get too much, too fast, or for too long, you just want to kind of walk away from it and say, enough already. And so the idea here of Lāhui on the Rise, and this is the beginning of a series of kind of family discussions about things that I know nothing about. I don't know about this. I didn't really want to know, but I'm kind of a little curious. And how many of you don't know much about what we're going to hear about right now, about the AHA in 2016? Oh, I'm the only one. Oh, my God. A few of us. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. And so, but I appreciate that, and that's what this whole Lāhui on the Rise is for. You know, we have hula on the rise, we have olelo Hawaii on the rise, we have surfing he'enalu on the rise. Why can't we have Lāhui on the rise too? And this is what they did, not the three of them, but as Kalei āina said, 154 people gathered at Maunawili in 2016. And so we're going to take a look at a short video clip that summarizes that. And then we're going to go back into an in-depth kind of process of what you did so you can teach me, I don't know, I like learn, mahalo.
All I heard before coming here was, oh, they're never going to stop fighting, oh, they're never going to come out with this, oh, this is heava, or that is heava. Taking our Iwi from us. I came in with a position and a stance, but I also came in with an open mind and a mind for collaboration.
Despite the termination of the Na'iaupuni Native Hawaiian election in December of 2015, Na'iaupuni held an AHA, or Constitutional Convention, in which all candidates of the election were invited to convene to produce governing documents. The AHA was a cross-section of the Native Hawaiian community in Hawaii from the continental US and abroad, spanning multiple generations and crossing various political outlooks.
Some will say that there are two sides to this issue. There weren't just two sides. Every single person there had a different side. Those sides have never come together and worked together. And more importantly, been willing to hear, listen, and see the other side. That has never, ever, ever happened.
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of order or just a clarification.
In the beginning, you were seeing people learning the process, learning the room, learning the politics in the room. People who don't play politics usually, just really becoming ma'a to that, and then also learning what it was that they would need to have to do to take care of whatever kuleana they brought into the room.
And I respect the work in here, the good, the bad, the ugly. I respect it and I support it.
You saw the pride and the emotion as people stepped to the mic.
And I stand here 100% for independence. Yeah, 100% for independence. But what is more important than all of our positions is unity. Because in unity, we can do anything we like. There's no government, nothing. Okay? If we keep fighting amongst each other, this is not going to go nowhere. We all want to talk.
It is important that we show passion. It is important because it does drive the whole effort. Our passion and our concern for others and our want to have things move ahead. Another little niche.
More important than anything else was the need to bring our people back together and understand that we're all working towards that, just in different avenues, different methods, different paths. But we're all the same people and we all want that. We just are taking different roads.
After weeks of discussion and deliberation, culminating with the drafting of a 15-page constitution, on February 26, 2016, the AHA met one final time, in which they voted whether or not to adopt their constitution as submitted.
On behalf of my babies at home and my grandmother who raised me, I vote aye.
Mahalo.
Resounding and very strong no, Mr. Chairman. The question is the truth. I vote no.
Mahalo.
I vote aye. I vote aye. I vote yes. Aye. I vote aye.
Mahalo. By roll call vote, 88 aye, 30 a'ole, 1 abstention. We have a constitution.
So I think step one is to walk outside the room and talk about what we did, how we got there, and how we each see segments of our community in the document.
The document isn't final, it's a living draft, and it can be amended if an identified citizenry lifts the paper up.
For the first time, I don't see Hawaiians talking about independence, sovereignty, federal recognition, fighting, and yelling. They're sitting down at a table, calmly, intelligently discussing the issues. Honestly, that's the thing I'm most proud of coming out here.
Mahalo. You know, before we move forward and learn about the nuts and bolts and the specifics about what happened there, let's take a look back and we look at the early days of the āina ho'opulapula. And in Keaukaha on Hawaii Island was a family, the Nahale'a family, still there, but a composer, Albert Nahale'a. And he says something in his one of his mele, Ku'uhome o Keaukaha. Keaukaha is my home. And in that, and I think that kind of right there kind of really exhibited or kind of showed that, illustrated that, e hana like kākou me ke aloha I mau ke ea o ka āina I ka pono. And again, 15 years in an embattled organization I've experienced, and everybody on this stage has experienced paio aku, paio mai. But what Alapaki or Albert Nahale'a reminds us is we can work together, but if we don't work together, me ke aloha. o ke aloha ka mea nui. We learned that number one, mana'o nui from our kupuna. So e hana ni ke kākou me ke aloha I mau, so that ongoing will be the sovereignty or the life of the land. So I really appreciate that. Michelle, if either you wanna take it from here, and before we talk about where we are today, maybe a little bit about how do we even get to an aha? What is the aha, and then what happened at the aha?
You want to do it?
I'll talk a little bit about that one. As it says in our little introduction thing over here, I was elected by the participants of the AHA to be the chair of the AHA. And as I said in the video, and I talked a little bit about when my personal introduction, I've been around the sovereignty movement my entire life. And I wasn't kidding when I said what I said in the video. I've never in my life heard Hawaiians come together and talk about sovereignty and self-determination and not fight. And I'm not saying that there wasn't fights and there weren't arguments and disagreements there, but they were very, for lack of a better word, they were very civil, and they were intelligent, and they were based on facts. And I've never seen that in my life. So when, once we as participants of the AHA self-organized, because when we first got there, it was being run by facilitators that were hired by Pacific Communications, who was hired by Na'iopuni through OHA to put the AHA on. I know a lot of people talk about Na'iopuni and all the baggage that came with that, but once the AHA convened, Na'iopuni sunset and went away. Their only job from OHA was to convene in AHA. Once we convened, they ceased to exist. I always give credit to those three facilitators because I could not have done my job as chair without them. One of them was Linda Coburn, who is actually a class of 1971 graduate of Kamehameha Schools. Peter Adler, who's not from Kamehameha Schools, and Kumea Aloha Gomes, another Native Hawaiian who teaches at the University of Hawaii. So once we self-organized, we followed a very simple template of how constitutions are put together. So we formed committees. We had various committees on rights, on judicial authorities, legislative authorities, executive authorities, and so on. And Michelle will talk a lot more about that. But if you think about it, I know that we have a few students in here, and I want to address this mostly to them, because I know that because they're currently studying things now in school, such as U.S. history and Hawaiian history. Every constitution, well, we had an expert on constitutions come and speak to all the participants. He's from the University of Texas, right? Texas, right? And every constitution in the world is held up to the United States Constitution, and that's because that was the first one. And that constitution took, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it took years of debate for them to draft that constitution, which still stands today some 200 plus years later. The people that you saw stand up here in front of you had 20 days from convening to adjournment. Within that time, actual work, they had less than 10 days to draft a constitution to try and speak for Native Hawaiians. Now, think of the gravity of that. You heard the people there who, as they walked to the mic to cast their vote, talk about their grandmother, their kids, the ancestors that came before them. Think about the weight of that on those people, to know that we have 10 days to try and speak for our people. That's the gravity of the work that was done there. And I say that because a lot of people don't take that into consideration when they read the documents that came out, which I know that I was the chair. Well, actually, I can say this because as the chair, I was impartial. I didn't get a vote. I'm the only person there who did not have a say. So if you go online to alohalāhui.com and look at the Constitution, and it has a list of all the participants and who voted and how they voted, my name is the only name not there. And that's because I was the chair, so I was not afforded a vote. But a lot of people, all they see is they're for this, or they're against this, or they're for that, or they stand for this, and they don't take into consideration the gravity of what these people took with them into that room for 20 days. And that's how we came out with this 15-page document.
Mahalo Kalei, āina, before you begin, I'm reminded again, as we move forward Hawaiian style, we always got to look back. One of the things that drive us as Hawaii to remember and learn the kuana ike, or the worldview of our kupuna, is to look back at olelo no eau. We all know what olelo no eau are, wise sayings. And there's one that says, hili heva kahimanao ke ole ke kuka kuka. Thoughts just run astray. They run amok if you don't have a good conversation. So that's not, what you did was not easy. Let's see what came of that. And we asked Michelle Kauhane to kind of walk us through the nuts and bolts, or the pohakus and the ili'ilis of what happened. Mahalo.
And then before I do that, I just want to say one thing about Kalei Aina's comments, because I know that there's sometimes frustration about, you were not elected, you were just participants, you are not a delegate, you don't represent me. But I want to be very clear that not one of those 154 participants who cast their vote got to that mic and said, I speak on behalf of the... They spoke only on behalf of their kupuna and their children and themselves. So they gave of themselves for those 20 days. And what I'm going to present to you is the best that we did in that time period, with no ego. That we're not saying this is the end-all, be-all perfect document. And in fact, we say this is our best work that we put forward. And that we built in ways for the people who picked this document and breathed life into it to amend it and make it something that we can all be proud of. So my job is really just to walk you through, and I'm going to do this as fast as I can so that we can actually have a conversation about the content and what this means going forward. So the Constitution, which this is it. You have a copy if you want a hard copy. We had some when you checked in. The draft Native Hawaiian Constitution is made up of 8 chapters. It's not that long, so read it now. Make this, the purpose of this is so that we can all make sure. And you can read, I don't have to read that to you, chapter 1 through 8 covering those sections. I am going to read you a little bit of the preamble because the preamble really sets the tone. And there was great debate over the preamble. And I see people in the audience who were there shaking their heads because the preamble that set the tone was specifically so that we didn't cut off one relationship or another, that we left the door wide open for us, for our government once stood up to make any decision that it wanted. So we, the indigenous people of Hawaii, the descendants of our ancestral lands from time immemorial, share a common national identity, culture, language, tradition, history, and ancestry. Just laying the foundation of why are we even coming together to do this work. Beautiful preamble, take a look at it. Chapter 1 of the nation. Again, if you look, Articles 1, 2, and 3, page 2, every page will show you this. So that you know if you want to go back and look at the document what it says. And then you also have a little PowerPoint because I'm going to fly through it, but you can go back and look at it later. So chapter 1 covers land, citizenship, and the official language of our government. Citizenship, any amount of Hawaiian, a descendant, a Hawaiian by blood. Official languages, Olelo, Hawaii, and English. And of course, we tried to encumber as much of what we thought could be our land. The subsurface, the air, the space, all of it. We want it all to pursue the return of our lands. Chapter 2, the Declaration of our Rights. This section basically goes through all kinds of rights, our right to self-determination, those rights that are our collective rights as a people, our individual gathering rights, rights as an individual, our customary rights, what the government can't do, prohibitions. But basically, Chapter 2 preserves individual and collective rights. It confirms our customary and traditional rights, and it affirms the rights of the HHCA beneficiaries. That nothing in this document overrides rights of existing Hawaiian Homes Commission Act beneficiaries, which is a federal law in place already. Chapter 3, Purpose and principles of government. There are 19 statements in this Constitution that talk about the kuleana of the government. It says that the seat of government will be in Hawaii. It talks about foreign relations, that this government can enter into compacts or treaties. And it talks about the appointments of judges and the legislature. How is that going to happen? Again, 154 Native Hawaiians, most of who I didn't know until I got there, sitting down to put this kind of content together. Where are we? Okay, so chapter 4, legislative authority in kuleana. Basically, this document says we are this document, which is the framework of the government, it sets up a unicameral democracy. It doesn't have a House and a Senate like the US, a bicameral, it's a unicameral democracy. It lays out the qualifications, the term of office, the representative count where you see there 22 and 21. Those were 22 by population, based on apportionment of where all the Hawaiians were that were on the list that the Na'Iaupuni worked with, and then 21 by land. So this section, legislative authority, really lays out that there will be 43 representatives in this government with 4-year terms and 12-year limits, that the AHA participants felt, given what we live today, that a 12-year limit was, you could stop and rerun again, but there was 12-year term limits. Chapter 5, executive authority. The leader of this government will be the president. It talks about elections, qualifications of the executives, that the president and the vice president cannot just come home from Mokuhonu. You have to have been residing here in Hawaii to run for those offices. Another interesting thing was that the responsibility of the vice president, who has many responsibilities, but his number one responsibility was to have a connection and kuleana over ties with the Native Hawaiians living on Mokuhonu. That was a strong voice in the AHA on that. Talks about, again, continuity of government. 42 and 43, interesting inclusions. Cultural hui and the hui of royal orders, that in the executive cabinet of the president, there was great debate that there needs to be cultural, spiritual advisors to the president. So the cultural, spiritual hui is amongst our own people, Native Hawaiians, our cultural, spiritual advisors will get appointed by them, not selected by the president, selected by that hui to the president's cabinet, and then same for the royal organizations. That our Royal Order of Kamehameha, Ka'ahumanu, they would select somebody who would advise the president on the president's cabinet, not selected by the president, but by the royal orders to be an advisor on that cabinet. Again, elected by citizens for 4-year terms with the cultural advisors. Not going to read you every single thing, but the biggest part about the judicial authority in kuleana is that this group of Hawaiians contemplated that our judicial system was going to be about restorative justice, that we were going to embrace ho'oponopono and our culture as ways to rehabilitate, that we were not looking at just punitive, we're going to lock them up. This was about embracing our culture and the concepts of ho'oponopono. Chapter 7, again, in all humility, because we know we didn't get it all right, but we're offering our best work and our best thoughts of our time together. That this section really talks about this being a living document, how it can be amended. There are 3 ways it can be amended, but it talks about the Constitutional Convention that shall take place 8 years after this document is ratified, and that it can be ratified every 10 years after that. So again, a living document that can be amended by the citizens. And then the final chapter, chapter 8, talks about ratification of this document, that this document must be ratified by the Native Hawaiian people, and that it would be ratified based on a majority of ballots cast. Again, those individuals would have to be 18 years old or more. So that's the breakdown. Again, the legislative branch is 43 representatives, 21 on population, 22 on land size, 4-year terms with 12-year limits. Our executive branch, yes.
It's flipped, right? 22.
Oh yeah, sorry. 22 on population and 21 on land size, yes. This is, you could tell there were lots of Civic Club people in the room because the immediate past president, I run against Kalei āina and I'm the president and he's the past president. He has to be my advisor. Tough, but awesome, right? That you can't run away from each other, that there has to be continuity in our governance structure. Very Hawaiian. We don't get to just say, okay, bye, see you later. He will be an advisor to that president, that past president, right? Again, recognizing the cultural and spiritual hui and the royal order hui has one in the cabinet. And that is my slide, the best effort that CNHA could put together to give you a visual. What does this document lay out? This document lays out a unicameral democracy with a legislative branch, an executive branch, and a judicial branch. Our president, our vice president with 4-year terms have to have 10-year residency. The past president is the advisor, and then the executive cabinet with the huis and the department heads, whatever they would be. Will there be a Department of Education? Will there be a Department of Labor? That's to be decided by the government. And then the judicial branches with 3 judges who will select the Chief Justice, and then judges serve 10-year terms. In one quick snapshot, that's basically the outline, the unicameral democracy that is embodied in that document that you have. So where are we today? Raising private funds for a ratification vote, that before we can breathe life into that document, that it would need to go to a vote by the Native Hawaiian people. And you may say, yes, we think that's a good document to stand up a government, or you may say no. But whatever it is, as I shared in my introduction of myself, I'm begging you, do not sit on the sideline. If you don't like it, vote it down. If you think it has hope, then vote it up. But it is a decision that we each have to make as individual Hawaiians on whether we want this or not. So donations are being made through Aloha Lāhui. There's a fund that got started. You can go to alohalāhui.com. It's being handled by the Tides Foundation, which is a national foundation. They've been around for a long time. The Protect Kaho'olawe Ohana, when they were raising money, same organization that handled the funds. And then we're doing educating community, doing constitutional symposiums that include this and a whole lot of other information. And those logos at the bottom are really who CNHA is working with, the civic clubs and the statewide associations of Hawaiian homesteads, to take this information out to the community, to share what's in this document with our people. So I just did this to help give a visual about what our governance looks like now in a visual. Right now, we have federal government, we have state government, and all of our issues, there's the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, the Department of Hawaiian Homelands, our Ali'i Trust, and our nonprofit or non-governmental organizations. And there are a lot of other entities. But all of our issues have to go through these channels. Mauna Kea, for example, where we're Hawaiians, somewhere in a bubble, working through the DLNR, getting to the courts, right? This is what our governance would look like if we ratify this document. If we ratify the document, then we have a constitution that stands up a Native Hawaiian government, the Native Hawaiian nation, but it just sits there. Nothing can happen until other sovereigns recognize it, right? We have governments now. There's the government of a Tui. There's the lawful Hawaiian government. There are other folks who have ratified their document, and they're out there. They're bubbles too. But nothing happens until another government, another sovereign recognizes them. This is what happens. Yes, I'm a proponent of federal recognition. This is what happens if we get recognized. Recognition is not about, I recognize you as a Hawaiian, that I need the federal government to tell me I'm a Hawaiian. Recognition is about seeing another government, that I see you, unicameral democracy of Native Hawaiians, I see you as a governing body, and now we can have a relationship. to negotiate lands, to negotiate education system, to negotiate healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. How does that make it different from where we were when we talk about the case of Mauna Kea, for example? I would rather have the president of the Native Hawaiian Nation sitting at the table with Governor Ige, having that great debate, having Hawaiians speaking for themselves. So this document is really about not who recognizes us later. We could be recognized by the federal government or not. We could ask for recognition by the UN or not. But before we can be recognized by anyone, the work of the AHA was to create a structure so that we can stand up a government by Hawaiians for Hawaiians, so that our issues are the priority of that government. That's it.
Mahalo Anui, Michelle. You know, that's a lot of information, and because it embodies what could have been decades, really, of work, really just a very short period of time, but that document has been copied. It's available in the back there. We talk about, and I want to move this over to Lilikalā in just a little bit, but remind us that constitutions are something that have been a part of Hawaiian history for a long time, and there are debates on which ones are valid and which ones are not. If you look at the current constitution of the state of Hawaii, that kind of governs what we've been doing for the last 50 or 60 years or so. That constitution was ratified in 1959 with statehood. It took 19 years for that constitution to be revisited. There was very little in that constitution that supported Native Hawaiians. But from that state constitution and the Constitutional Convention of 1978 came the elevation of Olelo Hawaii back to where it should be, and equal with English is fine. But that became the premise to the establishment of government-funded education in the state language, in the language of the official language of Hawaii, Olelo Hawaii. So it's how you work it. It's a representation of people. I think you folks did a lot of really good work there. I'm going to throw up a little bit of a Lilikalā Kame eleihiwa was my kumu mo'oku auhau at Kamakakuokalani. So, and I had a hard time in her class. Her 7-year-old daughter at that time, who's now my student, Punihei, was grading my papers, and I had plenty of red marks, all the names I forgot. But in looking at mo'oku auhau of constitutions, I want to go back in time because I remember in the early 1990s, Kalāhui, Hawaii. And and I bring this up, and maybe if you can remind us about what that was all about, there are elements in what Michelle is presenting to what I remember in the Kalāhui, Hawaii Constitution. What I spoke about earlier in my own personal experience, and nobody cares because I'm not supposed to be talking too much. Anyway, so is that people can get burned out. I mean, at that time, in about 1992, 1993, Kalāhui, Hawaii was huge. And that was around the centennial of the observance of the overthrow of the Hawaiian kingdom. Lilikalā Kame eleihiwa was a huge part of that. Can you share with us a little bit about what happened then and its relevance today or non-relevance?
Sure. Mahalo nui. So there were a bunch of us at the university, Hawaiians at the university, who started to go down to the legislature and demand the right to sue. Because Mililani Trask, who was class of 69, came right before me. I'm class of 70. She went away to law school, and she came back, and she wanted to sue the Department of Hawaiian Homelands because we were not able to get what we wanted from the Department of Hawaiian Homelands. And the judge said to her, you don't have standing to sue. You have to get the political guys of the legislature to agree that you should have the right to sue. So for many years, 3 years, I think, in a row, we went down for the right to sue. We marched and everything. And the Attorney General at the time, Warren Price, we used to call him the Price is Right, he said if the Hawaiians were allowed the right to sue, they would bankrupt the state of Hawaii because there have been so many things done wrong to us. We could not get the right to sue. We could not get the legislature to give us the right to sue. But at the same time, at the United Nations, and this is about 1986, 1987, there was a movement going on about indigenous rights. The indigenous peoples of the world are the first people of those lands. We Hawaiians, indigenous Hawaiians, living here 100 generations. We are the indigenous people of Hawaii. The Ainu are the indigenous people of Hokkaido, and so forth. Indigenous peoples have certain rights. And now we have a document called the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples at the United Nations, been signed by all nations, including President Obama for the United States, the last nation to sign. But, okay, giving us indigenous rights. That was also going on in the conversation. So Mililani said brilliantly, we should write our own constitution. Never mind the constitution of the kingdom, because, remember, women couldn't vote in the kingdom. So I, as a woman, I'm just like, yeah, I want a new constitution. But also, what are the constitution that we want? What are the things that we want? So we wrote a constitution in 1987. We had 3 constitutional conventions. We ratified it. We had 20,000 citizens that signed up, especially after the '93 march. We did it all with our own money. There was no state money. There was no government money. I used to go to the West Coast to give speeches to ask people on the West Coast to donate money. I schooled all the Hawaiians living up there. I said, the Samoans send money home. The Tongans send money home. You're supposed to send money home, okay? And so we got enough money to actually run our legislative sessions 3 times a year. We got not 1 acre of land. 20 years working on this, we got not 1 acre of land because we had no relationship with the American government. Whether you like the American government or not, and I have to say, America's not the worst colonizer in the world, and I know that's very unpopular probably in this room. I want independence, and the worst colonizer in the world would be Indonesia, because they kill you if you're indigenous there. We're not being shot in the head. Yeah, we're not having our heads cut off, so a little bit different. However, we could have a better relationship with America. So after 20 years of work in Lāhui and all of our time, and my children being raised at political meetings and falling asleep on the floor while we're discussing, what kind of constitutions we ought to have, et cetera, we went nowhere. We got nothing. People just walked away. So when this came up, that we should write a new constitution, that's what I wanted to do. I want a constitution that we can all agree upon. Now, we've got about 100,000 Hawaiians who are on a list. That Kana'i Oluwalu put a list together. And some people say that's not the right list. Okay, make a list. Kalāhui only had 20,000. Now we've got 100,000 who can look at this. And we have so many people living away, forced to live away, who want to move home. So this is the time for a constitution. And for all of us who worked on that constitution, nobody was paying us extra money to say this is what the American point of view should be, or what somebody else, the state of Hawaii is running. We spoke from our hearts. And sometimes we argued, but we came together with unity. And I want to acknowledge everybody who was there, the 40 people there who were under the age of 40. The youngest, Ka'umaka, raise your hand, Ka'umaka, 20 years old, to 40, including my son, Na'alehu. And he told me, Mom, we must have unity. We can't have any more division. And that's what this document does. It says we Hawaiians should decide. We're going to elect. The trouble with OHA? One, it's a state agency. They do a lot of good work. I want to bless them for it. But 2, everybody elects them. Non-Hawaiians and Hawaiians. You got me from the island of Maui, everybody in the whole island elects you from Maui. We want a government where our representatives are elected from my own he'eia. And if my he'eia representative doesn't do the right thing, we recall them out, vote them out. We want that. We want it for Native Hawaiians. We have that right. It's an indigenous right. We have a right to have a homeland. So that's kind of where I'm coming to. Can we put up my slide? Where's my slide? Where's that? Right there. Yeah, there we go. Let's start from Oahu, because that's where we're living right now. My family actually comes from Hana Maui. We lived there for 20 generations. For the last 3 or 4 generations, we've lived on Oahu in He'eia. And I want to just tell you what I think about land. So we're homeschooling my 5-year-old grandson, Lamaku. He loves maps. He loves them. So one day I was showing him the map of all the continents of the oceans, and teaching him the names, Makolelo Hawaii, Makolelo Haole. And he says, Tutu, where is Hawaii? And I show him on the map of the world, where is Hawaii? He says, we're so little. I said, yes, we are. We're very little. But our ancestors have lived here for 100 generations, and our duty as Hawaiians is to malama this land. Now, all the other people of the world who want to live in Hawaii actually have a homeland somewhere else. This is our homeland. Do we have land for our own homeland? So this is what I want. I want us to have a constitution. I want us to elect a government. Okay? And then I want to claim all the land from the top of the mountains down to where private ownership begins. If you're lucky enough to own land in Hawaii, that's not the land we want. We want the lands that the state of Hawaii is controlling, the so-called ceded or stolen lands. We want to control that. Mountaintop to where private ownership begins. And we can negotiate co-management down to the ocean, okay? But we need land where we can plant food for our people, where we can build housing for our people, and it's not just 200,000 acres. Or the state of Hawaii is 4 million acres. So I'm looking at it from the Hawaiian point of view. Let's not talk about acres. Let's talk about ahupua'a. 1,300 ahupua'a in the āina, in the archipelago. 80 on Oahu. Take a look at where the mountaintop is. Take a look at how much land comes from the mountaintop down towards where private ownership begins. Think about how many farms we could put in there. How much kalo and uwala and ulu could be grown there. How we could be feeding our people. How could nobody could go hungry again. Think about how we build and design our own housing projects right next to where private ownership ends. So we have roads, and we have electrical, and we have water coming in, and sewage that we would build for our own people. I want affordable housing where no one pays more than $500 a month rent. That's what I want. I want my children and my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren to have land here. I only have 2 children. I told them, I don't care what you do when you graduate from high school, both Kamehameha grads, but you must serve the nation. So my son, Na'alehu, he's the CEO of OEV TV, and he serves the nation by viewing the nation, by letting us know what's going on in the nation. My daughter, Ka'iwipuni Light, has a PhD in education. She wants to run the educational system for our people. In the Department of Education right now, 40% of all children are Hawaiian. Why are we not running that educational system? We can do that when we have a government. We can run our lands when we have a government. And that's what I'm passionate about. My job at Kamakakua Kalani is to train the land managers to make sure our people understand everything about Malama āina from our ancestors, and we're going to use it here. We don't need to have fancy things, just yeah. Have you been to He'ia? Have you seen all of those people up in Waipau? Have you seen them down in the fish pond? Now He'ia is Kamehameha land, and look at how many Hawaiians it's feeding right now. So I would say to the state of Hawaii, for the 1,300 ahupua'a, since Mauna Kea only costs $1 a year, right? Your university only pays $1 a year for Mauna Kea. I think we should have $1 a year for each ahupua'a. I'll pay the first 1,300, okay? I want us to have a plan about how we use the land. So these folks and the young ones are doing, how do we get the Constitution? I'm looking at how do we use the land and how do we take care of our people. 1/3 of all the homeless in Hawaii are Hawaiians. We should not be homeless in our own homeland, but we should have a homeland. So does that mean independence or federal recognition? In my mind, it means both. I want an independent nation where we're running things, where we have capacity to run things. But frankly, you can't get independence in this world today from any colonizer unless the colonizer agrees. So let's put America on a timeline. Will it take 50 years? Will it take 100 years for them to agree that we should be independent? I'm not sure. I can't predict American government, especially these days, you know. But I know this, there is a law that allows indigenous peoples in America to have federal recognition. And I know a lot of people don't like that law, but I gotta tell you, there are lots of nations that don't have that law at all, where indigenous peoples have nothing, where they have been drummed out of existence. So, it's maybe not the best thing in the world, but federal recognition gives us a way to talk to America. So I have been a proponent of federal recognition. I really wanted us to make sure that we were politically recognized by the American government so that nobody could take away Kamehameha schools from us, which is, of course, a plan that's going on, that nobody could take away Lunalela homes from us, so that Hawaiians are going to have rights, that we can make sure we have rights for housing and for education, and that if America wants to take over Hawaii, which they have done, right? You can't just get on any military base you want, that they pay us for it. and that we find a way to live in harmony with our neighbors and many of the people we've intermarried with, right? So how do we have that? To me, we must have a constitution. So some people have said to me, my good friend John Osorio, love him to pieces, we work together on everything, I adore him. He says this is the wrong constitution because it was paid for by OHA. But in the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, it says to all countries of the world, if you have colonized indigenous people land, you must help pay to have them set up their government again and set up their land base again. You must help them pay. So I didn't mind that. And also I thought, you know, what are we doing? How long are we going to wait? Lāhui failed. How long are we going to wait for another constitution? And you know, it's been a year. I'm waiting for John to bring out his constitution. Okay, you know, fair is fair after all. It's been a year. How long do we wait? How long can we afford to wait? How many of you have cousins that live on the continent? How many of you have children who are moving to the continent? So let's talk about what's real now. So while we're waiting for the 50 years for America to agree that we should be independent, let's make a plan for the 80 ahupua of Oahu, for the 1,300 of the āina. Let's talk about what lands we're going to get. I want to challenge every Hawaiian to think about how we malama āina in every ahupua that we live in. How do we take care of the lands? How do we make food to feed the people? And of course, you know, Hawaiians, we love to feed everybody. So whatever food we're growing, we're going to share with everybody who's not Hawaiian as well. We got 90% of the food that we're importing from America. Stop that. Let's bring it down to 50%. Let's bring it down to 20%. Let's feed our people. Let's live with each other. But there must be a homeland for the Hawaiian people. And that is what I want to see happen in my lifetime. So people say, Lilikalā, what's the rush? I'm getting old, thank you. I'm getting old, I can barely walk down the hall, you know? So let's do it now because I want my grandchildren to know they don't have to leave. By the way, my daughter married a Cherokee. My granddaughter, who's half Cherokee, she says, you know, Tutu, if I move to Oklahoma, I'll get free housing and free education. It's like a stab in the heart. We can't have that. We must have it for our own people here. So that's where I'm coming from. I want to say to you that if we deny the idea of federal recognition, it's like building a house without a hammer. You got to have a hammer and a saw and the nails. How do we make sure that we have everything that's available to us? And how do we find a way to work with the American government? Because once we get federal recognition, we can say to them, by the way, we'd like you to close down some of these bases, 1,300 acres of bellows, Hawaiian homelands. Hawaiians should be there, not the military, thank you very much. When they closed bellows, they said, oh, they have to close Mokapu. What a good idea. I want to live there. You know, nice houses in Mokapu. But we should be thinking about how we do the real work of government. I'm not running for government. I'm at the university. They don't allow us to run for government. We have to quit our job. So I'm going to stay at the university, and I want to make sure that all of our young people know how to malama āina, know the wisdom of our ancestors, understand how we lived in this land and made it beautiful, āina momona, for the last 100 generations. That's what I want. So I hope that you folks will appreciate that and support us. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Lilikalā. You know, I know it is getting a little late. I want to go, can we go a little bit, just a little bit longer? We're going to be ending with some mele and a presentation that we want to make sure we get to. But I want to, if I may, this is something that might be helpful to some of you who have wondered about the Na'iolo Walu registration. And that was the thing, one of the things that turned me off right away, another registry. So in my years of working for that organization, we had Operation Ohana. There was Kauhane, and there were about 2 or 3 others. Kamehameha Schools has Ho'olu database. Then Na'iolo Walu comes along. And this is a thing about people burning out and saying, not for already, I signed up already. Can you take, either of you, Kalei, Aina, or Michelle, talk, and kind of briefly, because we can probably get the answer online, but just to explain to our people who have enjoyed the evening here, what is Na'iolo Walu and how does that work?
So, Na'iolo Walu it's a list. It's a base roll. So Act 195 created the Native Hawaiian Roll Commission. You have 5 commissioners. Na'alehu Anthony, Gavwaihe'e, Leiki Hoi, Mahealani Went, Robin Danner. 5 commissioners representing the 5 islands. Act 195 created the commission, and the commission's job was one job only, to start a roll of Native Hawaiians, wherever they are in the world, to enroll. So it was a base roll. I agree with you, Manu, completely. Hawaiians have list fatigue. We've been signing up on the wait list for Hawaiian homelands. We've been signing up on the list for Ho'oulu data at Kamehameha. We're tired of lists. But detaching ourselves from the emotion of having to be on a list, it's nothing more than a list of people who want to participate in standing up a Native Hawaiian government. I think that some of the controversy over, well, I got on the list because, and I didn't even ask to be on the list. OHA switched all the names over to this big list. In 2012, the state legislature passed Act 77 that required the Native Hawaiian Royal Commission to, and OHA did it to be inclusive, to make sure that Hawaiians who had already enrolled for the purpose of standing up a government would be included. So their names got transferred over, and then the Native Hawaiian Royal Commission said, if you don't want your name there, there's an opt-out process. Or, just like if you're registered to vote and you don't feel like voting, you don't show up, right? So Kana'i'olavalu is basically a list of Native Hawaiians wherever they are in the world.
It's a new list.
It's a list.
It's this simple. How many of you are happy that non-Hawaiians get to have a say with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs? 1 person. 2 people.
Not happy or happy? We're not really happy with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, period. No, I'm just, oh my God, I'm not supposed to say things like that.
So Kana'i'olavalu is a list of Native Hawaiians. It's a way to ensure that if and when we are able to hold an election, only Native Hawaiians will have a say.
Mahalo Kalei āina. I want to point out that, our kupuna taught us we got serious, then we crack one joke, and then we go serious again. Back to serious. Okay, here we go. This is a great question. I think it might have been answered, but and any of you, maybe Lilikalā, if you can take a stab at this. Pretty clear. Does building a Native Hawaiian government preclude continued movement for independence, or can it help facilitate independence?
I think absolutely we must have a Native Hawaiian government before we go to independence, because we are outnumbered in our own homeland. If you think independence is going to be only Hawaiians, think again. We cannot disenfranchise everyone else who lives with us. So who's going to be in control? The Hawaiians that are a minority, or the non-Hawaiians who are a majority? And by the way, independence is not a magic wand. Go to Fiji. Take a look at Fiji. It's an independent country. People are starving there. So it's not going to solve all of our problems tomorrow, independence. However, I support independence where Hawaiians are running things, because that's how I feel in my na'au. I want to see that land of 100 generations of Hawaiians. Maybe we'll never get there. Maybe we'll have an independent country that is run by the non-natives. And in that country, I want to make sure there are certain lands and certain rights set aside for the natives. Because we might not get anything. We might get less than what we'd get from America. In an independent country, we're not controlling it. So I love independence. I've always wanted independence. I don't salute the American flag, and I never allowed my children to do so. And my grandchildren do not either. However, how to get there? What does it really look like? I don't know. But what I want is some land now so that my children can continue to live here. That's what I want.
And Manu, I just want to be clear that those are 2 different things. It's not one or the other. It's not either or. It's this and that.
Yes.
That federal recognition and the standing up of a Native Hawaiian government is U.S. domestic law. The federal government, it's settling the claims of Native Hawaiians only. The kingdom, which had natives by blood and non-natives, total independence and seeking some kind of a different kind of relationship at the UN is for natives and non-natives. It's a completely different path. Federal recognition is about settling the claims of native-only people. because the US Constitution recognizes natives that existed before the US Constitution. So it's two separate settlements, and it doesn't have to be either or. We're saying it can be this and that. Folks who support federal recognition do not say, ole, we don't want that. I don't think you can find a Hawaiian who doesn't agree that an independent would be awesome. That would be the end all be all. But we're not saying stop doing what you're doing, although they want us to stop federal recognition. We're saying we're gonna do this, Maika'i, don't stop. Keep fighting that fight. That's gonna take a lot longer, and it's gonna require the consent of the US. So two separate things.
Mahalo, that's very clear. You know, speaking of that, we have had the opportunity to take students from Hawaiian charter schools, immersion schools, and our own school to places far away, including the United Nations, and they look up at the flags on the outside, and it's just like, wow, all these small little island countries that are counted. So for those who are looking to see the high Hawaii over there, it's a really real opportunity. I have two multi-pronged questions here. One of them, I'm not sure if this is the forum to get to it. It's all about the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, talking about some legislation that's looking at changing some qualifications for trustees, what would these bills have impact on? And in a larger question on that same card, how do OHA elections, how are they relevant to the larger movement for self-determination? So let's try to figure that out. I mean, what is the relationship? But then I have a final question that speaks specifically about AHA and fundraising.
I think I know where they're going with that question about OHA, and it's something that we spoke to already about the election process. I believe, at least if I'm understanding the question correctly, it's asking about the fact that OHA OHA trustees are elected by the general population of the state of Hawaii, not just by Hawaiians. Whereas if we're able to stand up a Native Hawaiian government with our own constitution, only Native Hawaiians would have a say. We've all heard the saying, keep Hawaiian lands in Hawaiian hands. Are Hawaiian lands in Hawaiian hands? No, they're not. And the biggest holder of Hawaiian lands right now is where we're sitting right now, Kamehameha Schools, who is constantly, every single day, under legal attack. Should and if we're able to stand up a federal Native Hawaiian government, and if that government decides to go and seek federal recognition from the United States government, and if the United States government agrees to that federal recognition, guess what happens to any lawsuit ever filed against Kamehameha Schools? Aloha. If we are federally recognized Native people by the United States government, no one can ever say that Kamehameha Schools admission policies is unconstitutional, because we are now recognized by that government as an indigenous people.
Maika'i, mahalo. A couple more questions here. There's another one that had to do with a specific issue on the OHA board. And while it's an interesting time because we're very na'au people and emotional, I do want to recognize, because I did spend a great deal of time there, that the Office of Hawaiian Affairs does a lot of good things too. I mean, they are major sponsors of Kamehameha Schools events. So Office of Hawaiian Affairs, working for the betterment of Hawaiians. Mahalo. I was a communications director there for years, and anyway, I want to talk about fundraising, speaking of sponsorships. And because you talked about your fundraising process. And there's another related question too about, and maybe I'll give them all to both of you. Why, for such an important process, why such a short amount of time to put this together in the building of the Constitution that you had to do it? Was it 20 days?
20 days.
20 days. So we'll add that to, it might be related to what will monies be used for that you're trying to raise, and how much are you trying to raise? So that might all tie into the economics of the process that you are leading.
Okay, so we had 20 days because the AHA voted that we would not work on the weekends. We were doing enough already as it was. So if you take the month of February last year, which had 29 days, right? Last year was a leap year, right? Had 29 days. You take out the weekends, that gives us 20 days. That's why we only had 20 days. And that's because that's what was allotted per the funding from Na'iaupuni through OHA. We were only given that amount of time to work. And that had specifically to do with the lawsuit from the Grassroots Institute. Originally, the AHA was supposed to be half the amount of people for twice the amount of time. But because the election got canceled and everyone got invited, the money didn't change. They didn't say, well, now that there's going to be twice as many people, we're going to give you twice as much money. It didn't work that way. So that the money stayed the same, so they had to cut the amount of time we had to do our work. As far as where's the funds going to go, the AHA, it's decided on its own. The participants decided on its own. There was money set aside by OHA through Na'iaupuni for us to hold a ratification election. The participants of the AHA said, you can have it back. We don't want it. The participants did not want to face any legal challenges about a race-based election. I can't say it any more plainly than that. So it's been estimated by very smart people that run elections that it's going to cost about $2.1 million to have an election of ratification, and if that election is successful, to then have an election for government officials to stand up the government.
And those are estimates, but I want to say that think about this is a global election, that there are Hawaiians not just here at home, that Hawaiians on the continent and Hawaiians who are on that roll who live in other countries, they get to vote that document up or down. So it's going to take some work, and that's the estimate.
That's the other reason we only went for 20 days, because those who had come from the continent or from outside of America, you know, we had people from different countries outside of America, they had been told it was only going to be for that time in February. We couldn't ask them to stop and what they had to do everywhere else, and we couldn't say to them, well, you can't participate if we go longer. That wasn't right. So in the spirit of our unity, we needed to have it done at a certain time. Now, I think it's a pretty good constitution. I mean, you guys take a real look at it and go through it with a fine-tooth comb. I think it's a pretty good constitution. But the cost of ratification of that constitution needs to be borne by us. So you should go to the website, put some money in. You know, I'm trying to put money in every month. Everybody put some money in. We need to raise this money. If you know rich people who want to put money in, we'll take money from the non-Hawaiians too. Put the money in. Okay. So how do we make this happen? How do we find peace for our people? This is not a revolution where we're killing anyone. This is not where we're looking at a violent situation. We're looking for how we can find peace to live with our neighbors and make sure our children don't have to leave Hawaii, so that more of our cousins aren't moving to Vegas and the 48,000 Hawaiians in California can move home, etc. How do we make sure that we survive culturally as a people? We have the right to do so. Every indigenous people in the world have a right to do so. We have that right. But we have to get together politically, and we have to decide what we're going to do. And by the way, if you haven't signed up for Kana'i'oluwalu, the roll is still open. Would you like a vote? Still open. Go sign up now, right? I mean, it's not like we're trying to cut anybody off, but we cannot wait around for another 20 years for something else to happen. We have to do it. As Michelle and Kalei āina have been saying, we have to be the agents of change. And I so love that this younger generation is taking things over so I can just be tutu and write my books. Mahalo.
Mahalo anui loa. You know, I want to thank all of you. This is such a wonderful launch for Lāhui on the Rise, part of our series here at Ka'iwa Kilo Moku. We mentioned earlier, that Jamie mentioned earlier about our program next week, Tuesday evening, where we'll be looking at the letters of our ali'i between one another, what they thought, what they said. I recall not long ago reading a beautiful letter written by Princess Pauahi to Ke'elikolani in Kona, completely in Hawaiian, remembering that our own Pauahi ali'i fluent in Hawaiian language, and that reminds us of who we are and where we come from. This discussion today also reminds us of who we are and where we come from. Mahalo anui for making this, and we're not sure. This is something that we think that's important, the education for our community, for our Kamehameha Ohana. So we want to thank again Kauhane Wahine, Kalei āina Kane, and Kumu Kame eleihiwa for taking the time for doing this for us today.
Manu, I just wanted to say one thing in closing, because I see you walked in the door, to say mahalo to Jack Wong. Because I know that there are many people having many opinions about these kinds of discussions. But where we started tonight, as Hawaiian people, we look to Kamehameha, alumni or not, as an educator in our community. And so I mahalo you for having the courage. And I know you're hearing, from me included, from lots of people. And so I just wanted to thank you personally for making this and other educational forums possible. Thank you.
Yep.
Mahalo, Michelle. Mahalo, Anui. You know, our room, we have a full house over here, and our directions moving forward may go in many, many different directions. But again, as Hawaii, we always look back to where we came from. And so we have a special presentation by our ohana here from Kamehameha, Kumuhula Kaleo Trinidad, and some dancers from the Hawaiian ensemble. And they perform and offer a mele for us. If you cannot see, then you can have a chance to kind of, they're right over here. And we go back to the, not the origin of our people, because Papa and Wakea are preceded by many generations even before them. But this particular hula pahu, or a dance that is accompanied by the pahu drum, is high level, marking the high level of importance in this particular kuka anakeia po. So in honor of the three of you for taking your time, and to all of you for taking the time to just listen and learn a little bit. I know I learned a lot. We present to you at this time a hula pahu, o wakea noho ya papahana umoku. In honor of our panelists this evening, mahalo anuia okua paulua. Mahalo to our opio of Kamehameha and to Kumuhula Kaleo Trinidad as well. Kukako iluna. Ahimeni kako I kokako mele aloha āina. Ke kahi ona mele aloha āina. We also invite you to stay for refreshments after. We have just a few mea ono, some mona mona for all of you. Mahalo, if you haven't been here before, please come, and if you have been here before, e ho'iho mai, please come again. Again, Tuesday evening for our letters among the ali'i. We mahalo you also for allowing us a little extra time, because tonight's launching of Lāhui on the Rise here at Ka'iwa Kilo Moku is very important. We also acknowledge the Kapalama Kamehameha School Social Studies Department and all of our staff who helped to put this together. Mahalo anui. No laila, e himeni kako ya Hawaii aloha.